So I was trying to make this video about Behemoth, the whole MonsterVerse Explained series that I'm working on. And as I'm doing research, I started noticing something, and this also kind of falls in line with me in the Origin series as well as I'm writing season two. But I wanted to ask this question to everybody else and see what your guys' opinion was. And the question that came to my mind was, is it worth reimagining a character or creating a new one? And by that I mean, I guess we'll use, for example, Destroya. So in Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019, they used the Oxygen Destroyer to severely hurt Godzilla and not even affect King Ghidorah. I just want everybody to know that. It didn't even phase him. If anything, it could have helped stimulate his head growing back faster. Who knows? Anyway, I started thinking about character of Destroya being in the MonsterVerse. Now, it would be cool if Destroya was in the MonsterVerse. Don't get me wrong. I love the design of the creature. And for him being in the Heisei series and a part of that storyline, like, he was a good ending. He put up a decent fight. Even though the film wasn't really about him, he was kind of like a filler bad guy, but he just looks so awesome and he has some pretty cool abilities. He's not the strongest, but my point is, at what point do we reimagine a character's origins and stuff to the point where they're completely unlike the original version of the character? I guess the best way to really illustrate this is we're talking about a character like Destroya or Space Godzilla, or even we'll take Biollante, who seems like it could actually have a more realistic grounding within the MonsterVerse than some of these other monsters. But if they change the way Biollante looked, okay, that's understandable. Godzilla gets makeovers all the time, but he still has the very basic premise of who he is, and his character really doesn't change. The thing about the MonsterVerse is they actually are trying to change his character somewhat, because instead of being a creature that was created out of man's ignorance and man's ambitiousness, I guess, he was a creature that we created, then we had to deal with. And that's kind of always been the real point of Godzilla, is people, mankind, individuals needing to accept responsibility for our actions and what we have done and deal with them. That's what the first movie was pretty much about. I'm not saying that was the only thing it was about, but that was the end result of the first movie. That was the end result of Shin Godzilla. That's been kind of the end result of every Godzilla movie, because you can't kill him, right? You just got to deal with him. But to reimagine him completely, and not give him the same look or anything like that, kind of like the TriStar Godzilla 1998 movie, like, he's called Zilla for a reason. That there was no god in that creature. You know what I mean? But my point is, that was the first attempt at Godzilla trying to be completely reimagined from scratch, to a degree, and it didn't work. It didn't work because it wasn't Godzilla's character. So what happened? We ended up calling that character Zilla. Like, Toho bought it, renamed it, now it's trademarked as Zilla within the Toho franchise. And it just kind of sits there on the shelf, hoping to never be remembered one day, which I think the concept for the creature would actually be really good if they just reimagined that creature instead of trying to call it Godzilla and just let Godzilla be Godzilla. But my point is, so we move into the territory of reimagining the other monsters within the Godzilla franchise, because for the most part, most of the monsters have usually stayed true to their original character. Like, Ghidorah was originally a space monster that went from planet to planet destroying all life, and it was a planet killer, right? And then in the Heisei series, he was still imagined, his base character was still a destroyer. He was created to destroy Japan so it wouldn't be a world power later on in the future. And in the novelization, that Ghidorah is actually a clone of a space Ghidorah. That's how they made the Dorats. They took the DNA of the space Ghidorah that they found on, I think it was Venus or Mercury. I think it was Venus, yeah. that they found on Venus, and then they created the Dorats, and then they made Ghidorah because they knew it would fuse, blah, 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 blah. Like, it was a lot more intricate in the novelization, but my point is, ultimately, Ghidorah is still a space monster, even in the Heisei series. Or at least its origins are from space. And that didn't really change. I mean, GMK Ghidorah was reimagined as a spirit guardian, and then in the Mothra series, Ghidorah was still a space monster, still destroyer. And there's been very many different versions of Ghidorah, but all of them still hold true to the character. He is a destroyer. He is the ender of life. He is the antagonist. And see, the funny part is everybody looks at it as like Godzilla's nemesis, but Godzilla isn't necessarily the defender of life. You know what I'm saying? He's the upholder of balance. He is the offspring of man's ambition. You know what I mean? He's not necessarily like he was not some divine creature. Mothra is a divine creature in the Toho universe, but not Godzilla. So my point is, when we have these classic monsters that we have, and we want them to be in something like the MonsterVerse, we really need to take into account their character and how it was established within the realm of the Toho franchise and the entirety of the 65 years that Godzilla has been around, right? He's older than me. I just think that people really need to consider, and it's not so much that I'm trying to say that these things won't happen. It's more like I just don't want people to get their hopes up and then disappointed when they don't happen, because I just don't see a lot of these monsters making it from the Toho franchise into the MonsterVerse, because regardless of how successful they are in their different areas, whether it be in the box office or in the home theater market, they're not doing enough to warrant Legendary to be able to purchase the rights to the other Toho monsters to remake them into a movie, nor have they set up a properly developed franchised story, to be honest with you. And we can tell this because they made 2014 and it was super successful, relatively speaking, and they didn't know it was going to be, and they had acquired the rights to Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Rodan, but it took them 5 years to make this movie, and the question is, why did it take them so long? I like the MonsterVerse, but they're trying to reimagine Kong. They're trying to change him into something that he never really was to begin with. He was always meant to die. That was how his character was written. Godzilla was never meant to die. His character was written to be immortal, to not be able to be harmed by man. Kong was quite the opposite. He was showing how man can destroy some of the most beautiful things in the world, and how certain concepts are very dangerous if not moderately addressed, I should say. All that being said, my question to you is, do you really think that they should remake some of these characters like Destroya, Space Godzilla, Gigan, Biollante? Because, and the question is, how would they legitimately remake them, And would it change their character so much to change it completely from the way we know the character, Like, that's the thing, Godzilla's character's never really changed. Even though his appearance might have drastically changed a few times, his character and what he represents and what he is has never really changed. And for the most part, none of the other monsters have done the same, because they haven't been reimagined. So how could you explain Destroya's intentions, what it really is? What does Destroya represent, and why should it even appear in the MonsterVerse? Why should Space Godzilla appear in the MonsterVerse? What do they what would he represent? War of the Gargantuas. Why would they appear in the MonsterVerse? I think it was Gyra and I can't remember the other one's name. It's not Manda. Gyra and something. Anyway, this video has already gone on for way too long. Let me know what monster you think should be in the MonsterVerse and why, and how they could imagine it. And I mean, this is probably going to be some thought-provoking questions here. So tell me what you think, and we'll see. We'll have discussions and we'll have theories, and who knows, maybe there'll be another video about this topic later. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. If you stuck through the entire video and my ramblings with this question while I'm working on other content, then please hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. It really helps the channel to grow, and it also keeps you informed of every video that we're going to be releasing here on Scry. So thank you again so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.